Hi, my name's Fred. I drink beer. Welcome to this episode of Beers from the Basement, and I'm calling this one Let the Good Times Roll, and maybe you'll get the reference. So I'm going to start off, this is an experiment, they're all experiments, but I'm going to start off with Avec Bons Vœux from Brasserie Dupont. This is from 2008, so it's well past its prime, though it has been in the fridge for a while. I'm not sure how long. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure it's probably not, not at its best. Well, the cork is going to come right out. Ooh, and a great big pop. I like that. And even coming out of the bottle, it smells like Bons Vœux. So nicely carbonated. In fact, maybe over-carbonated, which might not be I'm not pouring very well. I think it's a little over-carbonated. You can see 2008, I don't know if you can see it's on the cork. So, well, let's... Well, it smell. I'm getting the spiciness I normally get. This is one of my favorite beers, and I feel very deprived because I normally only drink it in Belgium, and I haven't been to Belgium in a while. And we didn't get any this year in Southern California. So it's So it is over-carbonated. The color is about what I would expect. Maybe a little dark. It's hard to tell. I get this in the nose. I get the usual kind of spiciness I get from Bons Vœux. And it's still quite enjoyable. There's not much oxidation. So this may have been in the fridge since 2010 or so. I don't honestly. I didn't keep track of when I put stuff in. I did put in a couple bottles in the last few months as I took out other ones. And I didn't mark them, which is my fault. So the 9.5% alcohol by volume. Avec le Bon Vœux de la Brasserie Dupont. Non-filtered, Belgian session ale. And a little logo on the bottom from Abby Moynette, de la Moynette, which they, Dupont brews the Moynette beers, and they have an association with the Abbey. The back is a typical U.S. label, though it does one thing. This is often mistakenly called a Christmas beer, but it's technically a New Year's beer. And it says Le Bon Vœux means best wishes, which is what the Brasserie Dupont sends with this very special Saison ale brewed only for the holidays. Redolently aromatic, rich and velvety, this is an ale to toast the season and welcome in the new year. So I heard it translated as for the good times, with the good times. So it's technically a New Year's beer, but it gets grouped in with Christmas beers because it comes out about the same time. So I'm going to pause here for a second and take a picture of this, and I'll be back to ramble on. And see you in a minute. Okay, I'm back with my 2008 Avec Bons Vœux from Brasserie Dupont. And even though it's past its prime, I'm quite enjoying it. In fact, I'm drinking it too fast, which is dangerous for a 9.5% beer. Of the beers that are that I've had that are this age, this is one of the ones I've enjoyed the most. And I still have a bunch. I'm not sure how many bottles I have left, but a couple at least. So you'll probably see them in a future episode if I can find something to pair them with. Like I said, originally this started off to be a New Year's beer, but it became very popular, and they ended up brewing it year-round. Like that happens with a lot of seasonal beers that become popular, like the Schlenkerla Urbach from Bamberg. Normally is in the fall, but they brew it year-round to supply the U.S. market, because it takes a while to get here. And Bons Vœux is now brewed year-round, and that actually caused a little bit of a problem. Okay, there's a beer festival I go to most years, not every year, and obviously not last year because it was canceled. It's essentially a Belgian Christmas beer festival. It's called the Christ Beer Festival, and it's held in the town of Essen in Belgium, not to be confused with the town of Essen in Germany. It's north of Antwerp, pretty much on the Dutch border. And they've been doing it for 25 years now, I think. I first started going in 2004. And like I say, I haven't been every year, but I've probably been 3 out of 4. And they have very strict rules as what beers can be there can be at the festival. And first of all, they have to be brewed in Belgium. And it doesn't matter what the name of the brewery is. So you see you see beers from Mikkeler, or which are brewed at Proefbrouwerij and Lo Christie, and also beers from Teul. This is another Danish brewery or beer company. I guess they have a brewery now, but a lot of their beers are brewed in Belgium. So you'll see oddities like that. And they also have to be a winter beer. They don't strictly have to be Christmas, but they have to be seasonal for the winter time of the year. And so most of them are Christmas beers, but a bunch are winter beers, and occasionally a New Year's beer. Well, when they switched to year-round production, that caused a problem, because now it's no longer beer. It's a year-round beer. It's no longer strictly a seasonal beer. And since this is like the guy who's head of the association that puts this thing on, that's like his favorite beer. So it's like, we gotta have my beer. And so they had some consultations with DuPont, and it turns out it comes in a 750 and a half, a 375 split, and those are the ones that are brewed year round. But the larger, they make magnums, and for all I know, they may make larger. I don't know. Magnum's the biggest I've seen. The magnums are just brewed for the New Year's, and that's probably because they're not much exported. They're pretty heavy in shipping, and also it turns out the draft is only brewed. They only brew the draft for the Christmas, and so pubs that want to have it on all the time have to place a large order in the fall, or when it's available, and stock up on kegs. there's a place in Pasadena, famous beer place called Lucky Baldwin's, and the former owner, who sadly passed away a few years ago, this was one of his favorite beers, and he always tried to have it on draft, and he would order like 70 kegs of it. He had a special fridge in his basement just for his Bons Vœux. So at the Christmas Beer Festival, they just have the draft and the magnums, which is good enough. The draft, mostly I do the draft because it's very nice when it's fresh, like that. It's very good. Though there were cases back before they changed. I remember one Christmas I got 3 glasses. You pay for every glass, and they're I forget the size, 0.15 centiliters, I think. And when they had the 750s as well, I got 3 beers. I got the draft, I got the 750, I got the Magnum, and they tasted different. I mean, you could. I'm not sure I could identify which was which, but if you did a triangle test, a triangle test is where you have three glasses in front of you. 2 are the same and 1 is different, and if you can tell which one is different, that says that there is a noticeable difference. And obviously you need to do that repetitively with lots of people, because you might guess by luck. You got a 1 in 3 chance. But that's sort of a definitive, if you can tell a difference, a triangle test is a good way. And I could have, told the difference. I'm not sure I could have tell you which one was which. So I'm going to pause here and finish this and go for my next beer, which you probably guess where this is going. Will be somewhat a similar beer, and so we'll see in a minute. Okay, I'm back, and I was drinking a 2008 Avec le Bons Vœux from Brasserie Dupont, and my next beer is also Avec le Bons Vœux from Brasserie Dupont, but this one's from 2013. So it's 5 years newer, and it's also not been kept in the refrigerator. So this has just been literally in the basement. Now the refrigerator I'm talking about is in my basement as well. So technically is a beer from the basement, even if it's been in the fridge. And let's see if we get a nice pop with this one. It's like opening champagne. This is a champagne of beers, I guess, for New Year's. So let's not try and do a little better pour this time. I'm so used to pouring these old flat beers. It's a little hard when you get one that's fresh. So smells like a Bons Vœux. Look, tastes like a Bons Vœux. Looks like a Bons Vœux. Now, hold the 2 of them up. This is the 2008, and this is the 2013. And the 8 is a bit, and maybe it was because I was getting near the end and poured some sediment. It's a lot murkier. The 2013 is, it's got that orange look I expect, and is a little clearer. I mean, it is unfiltered. I don't know if you can see the bottle's about there, so I shouldn't have gotten a lot of sediment, but maybe a little bit. The 2013 is got some. It's definitely fresher, though there is sort of yes and no. There's a little bit more noticeable oxidation, but it's got more of that kind of flowery note that I like in in this beer. Flowery is not quite the right, sort of perfumey almost, but in a good way. So it's like the refrigeration slowed down some things, but not others, and this one benefited from, this one hasn't sat around as long, but it's picked up a little bit, not objectionable, just enough to know that it's not brand new. I used to every year buy a case of this, 12 bottles, and I think 2013 was the last year that I did so. I don't think I've come across any more, and the more recent ones tend to be at the front, and I think that's the most recent. I couldn't swear by it. Where I bought a case, the place where I buy it from, one year they didn't have it, and I went to another liquor store and a beer store, a chain, and they did have some, and I bought a bunch, and I think that was 2014, and some of the ones I bought, at the chain store were actually from the previous year, but some were of the current year. But I didn't get a case. So that's a tradition I'll have to start up again. But along there, I started to go, sort of from, say, 2011. I, go to Belgium twice a year, and so I drink a lot of Bons Vœux there on tap when it's fresh. In fact, there used to be a staple at the Covidtide in Antwerp. It was one of the beers they always had up until 2016, and they closed for about 3 or 4 months, maybe 5 months, while Derek had knee surgery. It closed from October to, I want to say sometime in the spring. And we're all a little apprehensive, because surgeries don't always go well, and you could see either, maybe it wasn't as successful, and so his wouldn't get around so well, and the place would have to close. But he was doing fine. He's doing fine. But when they came back, there was no more Bons Vœux, and I don't know why. He's not the kind of person you can kind of ask. There have been beers in the past where he's gotten into a beef controversy with a distributor, the brewery or a distributor or something else, and so he stops carrying the beer. But not far, also I said not far, in the old town of Antwerp is a pub called Die Ware Jacob. And it's a long time. It's been there. I remember my first trips to Antwerp in late 90s. It was there, but it wasn't all that great. It was an interesting old cafe, but it wasn't all that great from a beer-wise. And I want to say 6 years ago, around the time that Covidtide stopped carrying Bons Vœux, it was taken over by a young man, and with a definite beer interest. And now it's one of the better pubs in Antwerp. And he has Bons Vœux on draft all the time, and a nice bottle selection. He doesn't have a great, he's got 5 taps maybe, which is, draft beer is not the Belgian tradition. The Belgian tradition is bottled beer. And so he has a very good bottle selection of, very wide variety, which is what you like. He has the usual standards, but tries to have some other things. And in fact, that was the last place I drank beer in Belgium, which was in January of 2020. And the 2 last beers I had, I have a hummingbird that's visiting. The 2 last beers I had were actually the Trappist. He had the Trappist, the Tint Meadows from England, and the Fontaine from the Three Fountains from Italy. And I never had those. I was traveling with a friend, so we shared those too. And I was quite impressed with them. They were very nice beers. So those were the last two beers I had in Belgium. So, rambling on as usual, I'm going to take a pause here for a minute, get a picture, and come back and figure out something else to talk about. Okay, I'm back with my 2013 Avec Bons Vœux that I'm drinking in conjunction with a 2008 Avec Bons Vœux. 8, 13. You kind of see the colors a little bit. These are dangerous beers. They don't drink like they're 9.5%. And it's interesting with the recap. The 13 was just in the basement, whereas the 08 was in a refrigerator I have basically in the garage, which is the basement. And I don't know how long, but it may have been in there for 10 years. Because it's more muted, but it's less oxidized, whereas the 2013 still has a little bit more character, but I can taste a little bit, just a hint of oxidation there, but not enough to make it unpleasant. And I will end up drinking both of these, and drinking 1.5 liters of 9.5% beer will make for a sloppy ending to this video. But that's why you watch, I'm sure. It's like watching car races. You watch to see the crash. So I've mentioned a few times it's been refrigerated. I bought, I think in 2010, and I'd have to think back, but it might have been even a few years earlier. But one of those, it's sort of, I guess, technically maybe a wine fridge, a beverage fridge. It's got two shelves that'll hold upright 750s on both shelves, but the compressor is kind of at the back of the top shelf, so the top shelf is somewhat limited. And the bottom shelf has goes all the way back. And through some things that happened in our townhouse, it kind of got blocked for about eight or 9 years. I mean, I could get to it, but it was a real pain. I had to move some stuff, and and it's energy efficient. I never opened it, so it just sat there and ran, and probably cost me $50 a year in electricity, maybe less. And so it was a little bit of a time capsule of beers, and there are a few other ones that I will bring out. In fact, there is one beer that I drank on one of the previous ones, the Stouts Triple, which ended up being very dark. Turns out I have a beer from that 6-pack I bought that's been refrigerated the whole time. So at some point I will do a taste of two beers that bought at the same time. One kept refrigerated and one not refrigerated, and the not refrigerated one deteriorated badly. So the one in the fridge may be bad as well. So we'll see. And that's different. There were a few of the beers that have been refrigerated for a while were in my kitchen fridge on a top shelf way in the back, and you can't really see it, and you get stuff pushed in front, and kind of didn't realize that there were some beers back there behind it till I started looking for looking for my Dusseldorf mustard, and it was like, oh, gee, there's some beers back there. Unfortunately, those are pretty much all gone. Those were the two accidentally aged beers sessions. Anyway, back to the Bons Vœux. Boy, it's a really tough decision. That's the 2013, and there's just a tiny bit of oxidation, but it's much more lively and much more going on. The 2008, I don't get that hint of oxidation, but the beer itself is kind of, it's still good, but it's not as is not as interesting. There's not as much going on. It's still got that, to coin a phrase, Bon Vœux-ness, but just not so much. And so anyway, I'm rambling more than usual. That's what happened when you drink 9% beers. And I do have one more, and I may regret it, but I'm going to bring it out because with the things I do for my fans, I've got to push the limit. So I'll be back in a moment with my final beer. This next beer, my final beer, is technically not a beer from the basement. It's a Saison Dupont that I have bought recently, and I just thought, well, I should try, and I'm trying to see if there's a date. It looks like it was it's from 2020. I don't know how to decode the full date, but usually the first two digits are the year, and that says 20. Like the other one said 08, 13. So, and for this one, I do happen to have the proper glass. I did have a Bons Vœux glass. I may still have it. I think maybe I broke it, or it was broken. I didn't break it. But it was broken, and so that's why I'm making do with the generic Teku glasses. Now, this is not a fair comparison because it's not the same beer. This is 6.5% alcohol, and I say it is fresh as we get in California. So we got to be careful. Obviously, it's very carbonated. I'm not doing a good job here. Even though that's a terrible pour. If I was doing this for a living, you would fire me. Yeah, I'm not even getting the label right. But you can kind of, I guess the thing of the background, as you can see, it gives you a good background for the logo. This does say bottle conditioned, which it is, but it's actually fairly clear for bottle conditioned beer. And I'm going to have to let that's an embarrassing pour. That's what happens when you drink well over a liter of 9%, 9.5% beer. Now it's interesting. It's been a long time since I've drank the two side by side, and they are. And it's, again, this is a 2013 and this is a 2020, so there's 7 years difference as well as being different beers. I'm getting a lot more phenolics on the Saison. So I'm going to leave you. No point in you watching me drink these. I have a So I'm back. Sorry, I had a minor technical difficulty. My phone decided to stop recording. So to refresh, I'm here with the 2008 Avec Le Bon Vœux. which is still very nice, the 2013 Avec Bons Vœux, and a 2020 Saison Dupont, which is not from my basement, but is very good. I mean, the Dupont is the style by which the Saisons are judged, at least in my mind. I mean, there are other ones I like, but this is the sort of the flagship. So there's not much else to talk about. When the camera ran out, when the recording stopped, I was talking about the Northerner in Antwerp, which is a new place you should definitely visit, along with Jacob and many others. In fact, if you go to beerguideantwerp.com, you can see the places I like. And so I'm going to leave you, as always, like the video, subscribe. I was at 29 subscribers for a long time, and last week somebody unsubscribed, and it like broke my heart. I was like, stake through my heart. So I'm down to 28. So tell your friends, tell your enemies, grab random people on the street and say, you must watch and subscribe. And until next week, we'll see you again. And as always, good beers to you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and here's to when we can meet again in person and drink beer. So long.